Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to a special Between Takes episode of Missing Frames. I'm your host, Shawn. The 2020 Atlanta Film Festival may have just concluded, but I've got lots of great coverage and content to share with all you beautiful people, so stay tuned, all right? We're kicking things off right now with an interview with filmmaker Martin Von Krogh. He's an incredible photographer and documentarian, made the jump into features with his film Cinema Pameer. So Cinema Pameer, just to give you some background, is a movie theater in Kabul, the capital city of Afghanistan. The documentary focuses on the cinema's employees, this incredibly endearing and colorful cast of characters, and how they keep the theater up and running in a war-torn country. This is really like one of the only places of escape these people have, and it's incredible to see how this community sort of comes together. Martin and I discuss his jump from photography to documentaries. This was actually the reason he decided to do it, because he realized he needed something more than just what still photography could capture. We also chat about the challenges of finding the film's story within hours and hours of footage and the many years it took in the editing room to get this up and running. There was also obviously a significant amount of danger for him and his crew just being in Kabul and the situations there. So we talk a little bit about that as well. I loved this movie. It's one of my favorites from the festival, if not my absolute favorite. I'm not sure when it will be out to the public. I know Martin mentioned he's looking for distributors, so hopefully it will be available to watch soon. But if you do get a chance to check it out, I couldn't recommend it more. So without further delay, let's get to it, and I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Now available to own on video cassette.
Well, Martin, first of all, I think I have to say, I want to make sure we get this out on the internet in case I haven't said it enough to you or to other people. But Cinema Pameer, I love this movie. And I literally just watched it again before, like minutes before we started this call. And something about right now, we were talking about COVID, and we're also seeing a lot of movie theaters suffering and a lot of movie theaters struggling to stay open. So something about seeing this film right now where it's so about like the celebration of movies and the way they can bring us all together and inspire us and lift us up. It feels so timely right now. But this is your first feature?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Shawn. Really a little bit embarrassed when you say, that you love the film, because it's been so long since we finished the film, and it's really cool to have the impressions of a viewer when you release something and it's not yours anymore, somebody else's experience. But yeah, this is my first film. I've been working as a photographer for 20 years. And I found this ID 2008. I was shooting stills at the cinema in Kabul. I was working for Newsweek and needed to do one story in Kabul. And I just bumped into the cinema and started to shoot there and completely fall in love with the place.
So you were there for another assignment and you just happened to find the cinema and stumble on it. And you were like, this is awesome. I need to take some photos of this.
Yeah, and I went back to New Delhi and started to edit my pictures, and there was something missing. It was something that I just couldn't touch or get or express, I just realized it was my first aha experience with film. This is a documentary film, but because there's so many things in the cinema that just can't express in still photos. And for me, that was sort of a set down to, after a good career in photos, realizing that all stories are not for still photo. Mm-hmm. And I have to learn, because I didn't know how to film at that time. So I needed to learn how to film to make this happen, and I was just struggling and trying to come up with an idea, because I didn't want to take a break in my career, and I didn't want to get to school, so I was just starting to assist and work as a runner. I was doing everything at sets during spare time, and I didn't have any assignments. Yeah. And slowly starting to pick up filming.
I think that's it's just so funny that this ended up being your first feature, and the reason it came into existence is because you were taking photos and you realized, oh my God, I've got to delve into the world of film in order to capture what this is. But I honestly can't blame you, because you watched the movie, and first of all, you did such a great job, and we'll have to talk about this, because I was so impressed with the way you weaved in all these I mean, they feel like characters in a film. They're so every individual is so, from the general to the manager to the projectionist, the censor, like every single person has such a distinctive identity. And I get the sense watching it and hearing you talk about it, it's no wonder you needed to turn this into a film, because it's so, the film is so full of life and you get so much of that from these interviews. And I guess I want to ask, so you were learning how to make a film, and at what point, what kind of stuff were you doing, and what kind of films were you watching? At what point did you feel like, okay, I'm ready to make this documentary? Or did you ever feel ready? Were you just kind of like, all right, let's just do it?
Ready. I just had to do it. My mother passed away 2014, and I was just feeling like I just need to do this, because it's if I'm gonna wait, I can wait. I mean, I needed another 3 years in the edit room to actually feel comfortable to start directing, but there was not time enough, and you just sometimes have to throw yourself off the cliff and just see where you land. I never felt ready to start filming and to direct, because I shot it as a DOP and also directed it, but it was a huge crew effort, of course. I mean, the local crew was fantastic, but it's another story, but it was a mess as well.
How many people did you have on your crew?
It's a small crew, but it's still, I mean, for that budget, it was 12 people. Me and another guy from Sweden, Simon Hernadi, who was line producing, and then this complete whole Afghan crew.
So the project started in 2015. What kind of held it up? Like, it sounded like you were ready to, or not ready, but the original plan was to get it into Cannes 2016. So was it just, did you have to go back and film more? Was it just you didn't have enough, or was it just financing?
It's both financing and my lack of experience in the edit room. I got completely lost in so many different ways. So it was, the problem with this kind of story is that there's no beginning and no end. And that's super tough to put together. That was my definitely weakest point, to put it all together. And then financing. We got to a certain point and then get stuck, and we came up with an idea, but the money was out. So I have to work together with the editor, fantastic guy called Herman Forsman, and then try to come up with more money and sort of slowly working it, and then bring in more money. And that's half year, that's 1 year, and then time flies.
That's what I was going to ask is, do you remember what the breakthrough was in the editing room? Like, where you were kind of like, okay, I think I see where this needs to go, what a feasible beginning might be, where to take the characters? Or was it just a constantly evolving process of like every day figuring it out as you went?
Yeah, more like that, especially in the end. We finished actually, it was a nightmare. I think it was 2018. We had a finished film. I mean, it was graded, it was sound mixed, everything. And then my producer came in and said, "Hey, Martin, this," because he had been away during the process due to personal stuff. But then he comes in and sit down with me and says, "I think there's more in the material. So I don't think the movie is finished yet."
And you were like, "Great, thanks."
Yeah. Well, at that point, I sort of more like, okay, cool. Let's just put everything on the table back together and see what we can do. And then piece by piece, slowly start to figure something else, because we had lots of chunks. I mean, big parts that was ready. And we just need to move it around and search one more time to see if we can squeeze out the last bits of the material.
What was missing that ended up getting added in that later cut, or the final cut?
A good storyline, I would say. He brought in, he's a great experienced guy, and he brought in a better structure to the film, together with dramaturgy. Is that the English word for it?
Like pacing, structure?
No, it's storytelling. Dramaturgy.
You know English words better than I do.
No. Seriously, when I started with this film, I just Googled dramaturgy. I mean, basically, where do I begin? Came home with the material and was like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
That was the real situation.
Were there any documentaries you were looking at as like kind of your point of reference, where you were able to say, okay, if I can kind of maybe this is a good point to look at this for inspiration and to find some ways to do similar things in my work. Was there any
No,
filmmaker, or were you just kind of like really working with your own team?
no, we're working with. I mean, we did have that was more visual. I mean, inspiration. Definitely, we have a lot of visual inspiration, especially from I'm losing names here. Life Aquatic.
Oh, Wes Anderson. Yeah.
I mean, we totally have inspiration from Wes Anderson in the movie, in the visual parts. But when it comes to storytelling, no, it was really hard because I haven't seen any documentaries that has made a working storyline with the idea of pizza slices, because we're not following a person from start to the end. We're following a place, and that's a really hard thing to have a start, have an end, and ups and downs, and all the 7 acts that you need. So unfortunately, no. Everybody says that Bombay Beach is sort of similar, but I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either. We can only assume. Someday check it out and you'd be like, yes, exactly. That's what I was going for. Maybe that was the answer to everything. You're like, I could have solved all my problems immediately if only I'd watched this movie. But no, I mean, speaking of the visual sense, I mean, it looks stunning. I mean, obviously your background as a photographer really came in handy, but there are like the colors of the film. Like there's one scene where the general, and I can't remember, is it Dagarwal? Is that his name?
Dagarwal, yeah.
Dagarwal. I love it. He's yelling at somebody in the theater, but he comes out into that, I think it's just this blue room, the color of the room, and he goes down the staircase that's just red. He walks through this gate. And I just remember being so struck by the colors because I'm so invested in the story, but the way you use the colors in the setting to pull out those emotions, I just thought was beautifully handled.
I mean, the one that's grading, Mats Holmgren, he has been amazing. Has done a fantastic job to just get the right sense of image. Because we're looking for a really free of time. How do you say it?
It's
timeless. I mean, we didn't want to put it into 80s, 90s, or 2000 or today to look back at the film and say, yeah, that looks really 2020. So we really wanted to keep it open, and he did an excellent job. I mean, he has been nominated for so many awards and fantastic. So definitely shout out to him. The funny thing is we shot it with Nikon cameras, D800, 810. So DSLR cameras boosted up with PICs, sort of hard drives, to get a better picture. But then it's just about right exposing, and when you do that, you have a great material to work with.
As you're interviewing these people and getting to know them, was there anyone you felt particularly close to? I feel like Saeed just exudes this warmness. He feels almost like the dad inviting people in and just taking care of everybody. But also, were there any individuals that you in particular grew really fond of as you were speaking with them, or was it everybody?
Yeah, no, Saeed is definitely one of the characters that I have a really close bond to. But the hard thing was that they all speak Dari or Pashto, and I don't speak any of the languages. So I just speak English.
I was going to ask if you understood anything that was happening.
No, I mean, I can say hi and I could order a coffee maybe. That was a big nightmare. So, I mean, it's really hard, even when me and Saeed were sitting and just having a coffee at his place. I have a translator with me, so it's really hard to learn each other in a deeper level when you have to have somebody in between all the time and you're missing. I mean, the joke is sort of delayed. It's like, okay, why is he laughing? Come on, translate.
Right.
Translate. Yeah, that was funny. That was really funny. And then you're missing the whole. But no, I mean, all the guys are amazing in their own special way. Even, I mean, I love Dagarwal in a complex way because he's tough but he has a great heart. He just is a different generation. Even if he looks hard and behaves hard, he protects the kids and he wants the best for them. Also,
it's not just about the people who work at the theater, but everyone who's working to bring these films there. So I love that you included the interview with Nasifa.
Yes, Nasifa, yeah.
So I love that, first of all, you include her story, because she has a really beautiful story of like, oh, I wanted to be an actress, but because of the culture over there, it was very discouraged by her brothers, by her husband. They just were like, no, you can't be an actress. You can't go in there. Yeah. But she still found a way to be involved with film. And I love that she's, even though it's a job that, from our perspective, we can watch whatever we want, whenever we want. and there's no restrictions and not a whole lot of censorship. To even in a job like that where you feel like, oh, this is almost like oh, they're censoring stuff or they're editing out stuff or they're ruining the film, quote unquote. But you get a sense from her, for her it's almost an art form in and of itself, and she has a real love for it. And I love that you include her in that story, as well as like Fazil. And just, I know one of the things you had to go back and shoot was that harrowing journey to the Pakistan border, just them bringing the films over. Talk a little bit about that and what it was like to capture that footage. I imagine it was super tense setting it up.
Well, it was real. We were there for 2 months, and I mean, just even before we got there, we started to push for this trip to Pakistan because that was a crucial part of putting the whole film together. And then when we got there, it was like, I mean, we cleared the visa, and then we need permission, and then they're going through some really, really rough areas where there's a lot of Taliban and a lot of ISIS and Al Qaeda. So we were talking to, because we didn't want to have a strong security in a weaponized way. So we had a 3-layer security, where we first had our own personal sort of bodyguards. Were not bodyguards, they were just street smart young men that was sort of just keeping the ear to the ground, because my biggest fear when it comes to security working in this country is it's mob situation, where somebody says, hey, he's filming my wife in a sexy way, and then suddenly you get 10, you get 20, you get 100, and you get 200. It's exactly the same way that Farkunda died. People that just don't think and just throwing stones, and I mean, it's impossible to run away from. So we wanted to have guys just listening and then circling around in civilian clothes to cover that up. And the second layer was to have sort of alarm watch on our wrist, to just have a button to push if it gets really hairy. And then we had a security team ready all the time to come in with Humvees. And then, of course, we worked with the embassy and talked with security people all the time, see how everything was going and threats and so on. So our security team was like, okay, we can set it up, we can go there, but then we need 3 Humvees, we need to have a collar on, we need to have weapons. And I was like, no, this is this is so far from what I believe in. I don't believe in bringing in arms to a conflict, because if you are in a fire situation and you have to protect yourself and a kid gets shot, it's your fault.
Right. You're making a film, and it's like, no, I don't want to put anybody at risk here. Like, let's find another way.
I mean, that's what's my idea, to find another way to get the material to not, with no arms. So we were contracting a filmmaker in Pakistan, and he was coming to Kabul to get all the cameras, GoPros, and Zoom audio tools for just the pen mics, and then explaining to him and giving a workshop how to set it up in the car, and just asking him to follow in the car. He had headphones so he could listen to the conversation all the time and see, okay, the battery's down, okay, we need to shift. So that was just, pure luck. We have 10 hours of materials with GoPro that just are
just the car ride.
Interesting, because it's just 2 of them in the car.
I was going to say, probably the best case scenario is to have the most boring car ride, because listening to them talk about like, oh yeah, we've been shot at on this road before. Like, just like, you almost are like, well, thank God it's so boring. Thank God we got the boring footage and nobody got hurt and none of that stuff. But it works out. I know there's like in the back of your mind, it's like, well, maybe it could have been exciting to see a conflict, but at the same time, you're also like, well, no, it's not worth the risk. And honestly, you feel, watching that scene, you feel the tension. I mean, you did such a good job. Your editor and the music, everything builds the sense of like, I was watching that, I was so tense. Just because I was like, oh God, I hope they didn't, like, how did they get this drone shot? And how did they get these? Okay, they have the GoPro set up in the car, so clearly no cameraman went with them. So if they did get pulled over, nobody's at risk. But I'm just watching that, just like so stressed out. Think like even when nothing, they're able to get there and back again. Man, it's intense. It's intense to watch.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that you thought that you wanted more action in it, because we're having a lot of discussion about this in the edit room, and one of the major things was to not have a Western narrative in it, to highlight things like that. We didn't highlight the bomb that went off outside the cinema because
Yeah.
for them it's ordinary life. I mean, for them it's nothing. So why we try to make the explosion much bigger and edit in a really sort of rushy way. But then we went back and we felt like, no, I mean, it should be exactly as they experience it. And the same thing with the car ride. I mean, of course, the road is going like this and back and forward, and they are driving like maniacs. But the interesting part is the conversation where it's like exactly as you tell it. For them, it's no big deal. It's been going on for 40 years, and that's what I'm trying to show, the reality of their lives, not to make it into an action movie or to show conflict as they always are shown, from the worst side, from the front lines, from the gunfights. So it's really interesting that you say that.
I'm glad you brought up the IED scene, because I can't imagine what it was like. I mean, you're filming it, and then all of a sudden you catch it on film, that moment, that explosion. What was that like that day? Just like the bomb going off outside the theater, and then just trying to scramble to figure out what happened.
No, I was shit scared, to be honest, because we were sitting up in the machine room, and that was recon the whole place, in and out for escape paths, and we have safe houses in different places, and we have we had a really good security situation. But that room, that was the worst room to be in if something happened, because it was bars on the window, so we just couldn't go out, so you have to go stairs down. Right. And then it was just on the street, so if they had reconned the place and making a smart attack, they would definitely be hitting the front door and the back door. So and usually when these things happen is that you hear first a big explosion. That's when they blast the front doors, and then you wait for a couple of seconds, and then they go in and they kill everybody in the place, and then they make a stronghold in the building, and then they're just waiting for the military to come in, and then it's a shootout. So when the bomb went off, it's like, the interesting part is with Evas, the projectionist, he didn't even blink.
That's one of the other things. It was just like his reaction to it was so nonchalant. He he feels it, and he kind of is looking around like, is everyone okay? Like, are we good? And I'm just like, but you're right, he doesn't flinch. And that's almost adds, like you said, that sense of like, this is just a regular day for them. And it's crazy.
Yeah. So that's what was the interesting part in that scene, I think. For my part, I was really glad that the camera was on tripod, because otherwise you would just get really shaky pictures. But we were up there, and we were just waiting for something to happen after the bomb went off, and then my second camera guy runs down and just take a small look, and nothing's happening. And we just took us 10 seconds to get control of ourselves, and then we started to run down and film reactions.
Right.
And that was the situation when I should have pushed my button on my wrist. I completely forgot about it.
Oh my God.
It was like, the watch was working really good. The security situation, fantastic, Martin. Yeah, the small detail that if something goes off like a bomb or so, you should just push the emergency button.
Hit that button. Yeah.
Yeah. Completely lost it.
Was there anything else like that you didn't capture, but like a moment where you had to use the safe houses, or where you had to make a quick escape? Or because I imagine it's not very inconspicuous, a camera crew following these people around and shooting. I imagine there were maybe not conflicts, but were there any tenser exchanges maybe with people on the street? And then on the flip side, were there any fun exchanges with people just curious about what you were doing, where it was a little bit more lighthearted?
Yeah. I mean, the first question is directly after, because we didn't know who the bomb was aimed for. It was the cinema, us, or something else. So we shut down the production for 1 week and just shot environment pictures. For example, drone pictures up in the mountains for the car ride. And that was, that's another story. We were up in the mountains and filming with drones, and suddenly gunfire starts. And it's a valley, so you don't know if it's the next valley or if it's just right up to you, and you don't see any smoke on the ground, or you don't see the signs, but you know it's close. So it's that was one situation. I mean, we had so many good situations, and 90% of the situation were good with people. and people were really friendly and curious. Of course, there were some hostile situations where you didn't know how it was going to be. We tried to get as many visitors as possible to just tag along and follow them for a couple of days. But that was really hard to convince somebody to say, yeah, let me follow you. And you're going to this cinema, which is not kosher at all. And we should show it to the world. Is that okay with you?
Right.
So that was a really tricky situation. But then most of the people were really friendly, and a really funny situation came up when I was there at the year before, 2014. We were there and just making the pilot and doing recon of production companies and everything. And I was going to film with a drone in the middle of Kabul. And we went up really early, right? 5 a.m. Say, okay, because drones, Afghanistan, probably they think we're military or something. And lifted up. We had a police permission, and the police was there, but things can get out of hand, even if the police is there. And this was with the drones that didn't have a monitor, so you have to view it manually. Taking the ride, a little bumpy alongside a river, and then land it. And then it's like looking around, and you just realize there's like 50 people around you standing and giving you applause and like, wow, amazing, what is that? Of course they knew that it wasn't military. It was just my Western stupidity that just thought that these ignorant people have never seen anything like this. But of course they're up-to-date and modern people, but they just haven't seen the new Phantom camera. So it's just like, oh my God, it's the new DJ1. Oh, amazing. So it was really fun and unexpected experience and situation where I thought completely the opposite from the start.
Well, I love that story, but I love, like, even though that's not a moment that's in the film, there are moments where it's just these little human moments that I love so much. There's so many beautiful, just these very human moments and these stories. And when Saeed, when he's talking to Fazula, when he shows up to the theater, and he basically is like, I just had a son, and he's congratulating him, and then not a split second later he's like, the son, he was in the ICU and just passed away today, and I needed to come here. And you just get this sense of the cinema as this almost sanctuary, this spiritual transcendent place that brings all these people together. But I love these little moments that are peppered throughout, these human moments. Probably my favorite scene, and I want to know what your favorite moment is, but Saeed's story about the girl. When she tells him that she loved, that gave me chills. I was so moved by that. But are there particular moments for you that you watch that are just the little human moments that you think people should pay attention to, or that are moving to you, that you're so glad you were able to get into the film?
Well, yeah, I mean, you picked up a couple of them. And of course, you have this feeling of Cinema Paradiso, which we deliberately put into the cinema. But then Faisullah, he's I mean, we talked earlier about characters that you fall in love with and that you have a deeper connection with. And he's such a sweetheart. And he's been in a really tough situation in life. But he still is humble and has the heart on the right side and easy to talk to and just a really great guy. And most of the things I didn't realize until we were sitting in the edit room, what actually captured, especially with the son. That was something that I lost in translation. So that was one thing like that I wanted to have follow-up question with, obviously, but completely missed because I didn't hear anything from the translator. But at the same time, it turned out well because it's also points the story into the cinema. I mean, as you said, it's the place to be. It's a sanctuary, so you can come and relax. But yeah, definitely that scene. And then Said's love story. I heard it first time when we were sitting and eating lunch, and me and Said was just talking about how he met his wife, and then I said, I mean, did you have any girls before that? And then he starts to giggle, and he haven't thought about this for like 30 years, and he blushes, and I was like, where's the camera? And I didn't get the first storytelling from him. And then we tried, I think, 3-4 times to have interviews with him, and could you please, I mean, tell the story again? And he got really tired of me. But then at one point we got basically the same thing when he laughs and talks about it and remembers it, and it's like, no, my wife is gonna kill me if she finds out about talking about this.
It's
But it
so
was a
good
beautiful
though.
story.
It's so
Yeah.
good. I love it, and it's one of the most moving scenes in the film. You mentioned his wife. He's like, she's gonna kill me if she sees it. Have they been able to watch this? I don't know in terms of like, is this a film you could? I'm guessing because of the frankness with which you discuss a lot of what's happening over there, it might not be a film you could screen there. But I imagine there's this in my mind, there's this beautiful unseen sequel where you got to take this film to Cinema Pameer and screen it at the theater. Is that remotely possible, or are they able to see it at all?
Yeah, they have seen it. They got the right to express a couple of things in the film that we edited out.
Gotcha.
When they talked about a couple of things. And for Saeed was really funny when we got his reactions back. Well, can you please, I mean, I'm smoking all the time. Can you please remove all the smoking scenes? It's like, Saeed, come on. You're smoking all the time. You can't just, I mean, that's a part of you. What are you talking about?
Right.
Like, no, we're not going to cut that.
And also everybody's smoking. Like, I mean,
but it was
so
like
it's just a past tense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, I mean, I can't be, I don't, it's not good public. Yeah. But yeah, they've seen it and they like it. At least they told me to. And now the promise was from the beginning that I wouldn't show the film in Afghanistan due to security for the personnel. But then last year the cinema actually closed.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it's a pity. And but that everybody's okay and everybody's good. That's in the film. But now it opens up new possibilities to actually take it to Afghanistan and have a screening on a cinema there. So I'm having discussions with Afghan film festivals about taking the film there now in November, I think. So we'll see how that ends up.
Is there anything like that they're comparable, like any other movie theaters that they can go to, or is that really the?
Yeah, there are 2 more movie theaters operational in Afghanistan, in Kabul.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I need a moment. Well, I guess because I saw. So you submitted this to Cannes and it didn't get into Cannes.
No.
Those assholes.
Yeah.
Especially right now, like I was saying at the beginning, it just feels like such a we need this movie. Like with the state of movie theaters right now, this feels like something that I know it's amazing how something you create can just take on a life of its own. Yeah. But just due to the fact that this film, I happened to see this film at a film festival in the middle of this crazy COVID pandemic, it just took on, in addition to the beauty of the film itself and what you were doing, it's now almost, to me, it feels a little bit like a mascot for like, this is why movie theaters need to stay open and why they're so important and why we need them. And so when I hear it, like, it's like, oh yeah, this is a long way of asking my question, but when I hear things like, oh yeah, I can, like that, it just annoys me so much because I'm like, this is exactly the kind of movie I feel like more people need to see. But what is the process from your end? I mean, you finished it, I guess, in the past couple of years, and now you're submitting it to festivals. But what are the next steps for getting it out there? Is it something where you submit it to a festival and hope to talk to a distributor, or what exactly is this process like?
I mean, this must be the worst year ever for any filmmakers to release a film in. So we missed a couple of film festivals, and that was postponed. Atlanta Film Festival, thank God, actually pulled it off and show it now. And it was a drive-in screening, so it was fantastic. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there. But besides that, we've been having it out on festivals the whole year, and now we have a couple of more festivals that we're in competition for, and then we're just hoping to find distributors. It's been really hard to I mean, because we haven't been able to go to any festivals, we haven't been able to do any networking and so on. Yeah. So it's a really tough situation for the film, but we hope it will land on at least on the TVs around the world. But we're waiting. We just won an award in South Korea.
Oh, awesome! Congratulations!
Yeah, thank. With that money, we're just gonna do the TV version, hopefully. And try to sell it in that way. But we're still open and looking. So if you hear this and you're looking at the movie, just don't hesitate to contact us.
Definitely. I don't know how to break it to you, Martin, but I think you've got a really bright future in films. I think you should maybe consider sticking with it. Just maybe.
Thanks.
I'm so excited to see more from you. What are the biggest lessons you take away from this experience, from your first film?
Well, I mean, the biggest experience is that film is a team effort, and everybody are equal important in the process. And for me, as a still photographer, coming from that career where it was just all about me, myself, and I, where I'm the star, I want to win the awards. It was a big and rough process for me to break it to myself that, Martin, this isn't about you anymore. This is about pulling off the film and letting your guard down, and actually are willing to get help from people that are better than you. And that's the whole deal with film. I mean, give an idea to the editor, and he makes it better. And for me, that's the biggest lesson.
Are you working on anything else right now, or are you just kind of taking it easy, focusing on getting this one out into the world?
No, I'm working on a new film actually right now. So we've been shooting it since spring, and it's a story about this really cool punk girl band in Sweden called Sahara Hot Nights, and they've been playing since they were 14 years old, and now they're all in the 40s, and they just are about to come out with a new record. So been having a break, and it's about friendship, and they toured in the States also, and they're really big in Sweden. So it's a story about friendship and band coming back together, and it's going to be really interesting. But I'm co-directing it with another director. So
that's awesome. And what's that like? I mean, is that, you talk about the collaborative experience of filmmaking, is that a whole other level of collaboration, co-directing with somebody, or is it nice to have kind of a burden?
It's nice to have somebody to actually. It's the hardest part has been to be really lonely in the process. As a photographer, I've been filming different films during the years now, but and that's really nice to just give the material to somebody else. But to sit as a director, and I've been crying so much about, I mean, I'm not going to pull this off. How do I do it? I'm worthless. I don't know how to do it. I'm a fraud. Until you sort of have to get up out of bed and look at the computer and just put it on and say, we just gotta finish it. But it's a really painful process. It's the worst thing I ever experienced.
It's a ringing endorsement for all you young filmmakers out there.
Yeah, but it's so fun at also. It's the same thing with, I mean, I'm not a woman, but giving birth, I mean, you forget about the pain, as I heard. And this is the same thing. You just not completely. Of course, I remember all the pains, but you still want to go through it with another one and put that experience, the last experience, into the next one and see if you can improve it and how you can be better. That's the fun part with starting up with a new movie, actually, to see if you learned something and how to take that to the next level.
So, last question. My podcast, Missing Frames, we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. Is there a movie you need to have seen by this point that you haven't, but it's on your list?
Well, the latest film that I need to see is Roma.
Cuarón's Roma?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of, films that I really need to see. Taxi Driver, haven't seen it yet.
Oh, yeah. And Michael Chapman just passed away.
Oh. But so, yeah, Taxi Driver and Roma, I would say.
Those are good picks. Well, Martin, I just want to, I know it's exhausting, and I know you haven't gotten the glow and the experience of getting to take this around 2 festivals in person, but I hope my enthusiasm about the film gives you a little bit of inspiration. I sincerely love it. It's a pleasure to be able to say to you that this is my favorite film that I've seen at the Atlanta Film Festival. So wow. I hope that means a lot to you. It means a lot to me that you made it, and to everybody for putting all the hard work into this. I thank you. No. I think it's a real gift, and I'm really, really excited to see where you go from here. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Well, it's my pleasure, Shawn. I'm embarrassed because of your kind words, but it really means a lot to me. Thank you so much.